Good day and welcome to Chapter 2. Today we're going to talk about check sheets and checklists. Here's our learning objectives. You can read them on the board. So what is a check sheet? I like to look at it as the input to a Pareto. It's a data gathering tool. I like the tool because it is excellent at distinguishing fact from opinion. When I walk into a meeting, I want to walk into a meeting with expert judgment and data. I can gather that data through check sheets, and they're excellent for tracking. You can see in this particular example, it's tracking defect types. So the check sheet is appropriate when data can be observed and collected repeatedly by either the same person, the same location, same team, and we can go ahead and put the data in categories that allow us to later input that data into the next tool we're going to learn about, which is the Pareto chart. On the board, you can see a medical example. This is a true example of issues that were happening in an operating room, and it came to find out that if people just turned off their phones, which seems common sense like, all of a sudden interruptions went down by 90%. But a check sheet is different than a checklist, right? A checklist is something that's done pre-flight, like a pilot before he takes off. A pilot will go through a pre-flight checklist. We want to make sure that we have clearly defined objectives for the type of data we're seeking to collect. And we want to make sure that the source of the data is true, because bad data looks exactly like good data on a spreadsheet. That Jeff Cole teaches us that during class. So we want to determine and define the categories, and definitely we want to look at the time period, because if we just collect data for one day or 1 week, that may not be enough data. So we want to think about a checklist for our check sheet. So in the next chapter, we'll talk about Pareto charts. Hello, welcome to Chapter 3. I decided to put both these chapters together because I think I'm going to be under 5 or 6 minutes. So let's talk about Pareto charts. Pareto charts measure 20% of the effort equals 80% of the result. Wilfredo Pareto walked out one morning and he realized that 80% of the wealth in Italy was owned by 20% of the families. And obviously, we have a problem with that. So usually 20% of something causes 80% of the problem. Let's talk about this healthcare example, right? Understanding test tube defects. This is what a Pareto looks like. And the data from the check sheet and those categories, obviously we could look at the bottom and it says one of the categories that they were tracking in the check sheet was labels unreadable. And notice that 59 of the labels were unreadable. So that alone made up a large percentage of the problem. Now, sometimes we can dive into an issue and say, well, if this was such a big problem, let's go ahead and do stratification. That means we do a Pareto on a Pareto, and we say, what was the problem with labels being unreadable? Well, sometimes they were just the wrong label, and other times there were no labels at all. So if we focus on making sure that test tubes have labels, and we focus on making sure that the labels are correct, this percentage right here of labels being unreadable will go down dramatically. So in class, we have a template that we give you. We have templates for everything that we teach. It's part of the meeting invite. Please go ahead and contact Al Diaz if you do not have a template. And then in class, we go through an exercise. So I will go ahead and leave it there. This is chapter 2 and 3 of the Lean class. Thanks for watching.